On a textile line, one slip near the rollers turns routine into risk. Inside the production hall, large rollers feed fabric through the line with steady motion. The setup is designed for precision, drawing, layering, and winding without pause. To most, it looks routine and efficient, but every exposed rotation carries the risk of unintentional engagement. As the rollers continue operating, a loose piece of fabric brushes the moving section of the machine. The rotation catches it briefly before operators intervene, showing how even minor contact near exposed motion can lead to unpredictable movement when guards are missing. Never, ever operate textile rollers without guarding or secured material handling zones. Exposed rotation may appear harmless, but even minor interference can escalate into full-scale equipment entanglement. On a fast-moving conveyor, even routine motion hides a silent risk. Inside the warehouse, stacked packages move from table to belt in a constant stream. The atmosphere is routine, workers sorting, the hum of motors, the steady clatter of boxes finding their path. A cold draft cuts through the open dock, but the work keeps flowing. All eyes on the moving line. She steps forward to grab a loose item near the moving belt. In a split second, it drifts toward the rollers, the belt's strongest grip point, where motion doubles back with full force. The system pulls the object in instantly, showing how one reach near that zone leaves no time to react. Never, ever reach or lean into a moving conveyor without a secured stop or guard in place, because motion that seems predictable often conceals unseen force. Inside a fabrication yard, a welding arc meets a sealed tank, and control turns uncertain. It's midshift in a heavy industrial bay. Overhead, cranes move along steel beams as welders finish their final assemblies. On top of a transformer tank, one technician begins aligning a weld joint. The atmosphere feels routine, yet the vessel below contains unverified gases that have not been cleared. What appears stable hides conditions that are not fully understood. When the arc activates, residual gases inside the chamber react to the heat input, causing internal pressure to fluctuate. The atmosphere around the vessel shifts with rising temperature, revealing how confined spaces can alter their balance under thermal load. The change demonstrates how unverified atmospheres affect weld stability when preparation is incomplete. Never ever start hot work on any tank, vessel, or enclosed equipment without full atmospheric testing and verified ventilation. Even trace vapors can transform the environment the moment ignition begins. At a loading bay where liquid vats never stop, one wrong step can change everything. The day is routine. Workers transfer a thick mixture from drums into a processing vat. Buckets slosh, foam rises, and surfaces stay slick with constant overflow. The setup is familiar: a raised platform beside the vat, no railings, and constant foot traffic moving between the truck and the edge. Every action demands precision and balance. As the worker adjusts his stance to pour from the container, his footing slips on the coated edge. Without a rail or steady surface, he lurches toward the open vat. A single step becomes a wake-up call, proof that one missing barrier can turn routine work into a serious near miss. Never, ever perform loading or transfer work near open vats without guardrails or anti-slip control. Surfaces coated in residue can turn stable footing into a hidden hazard, and the lack of barriers leaves no margin for error. Inside a quiet workshop, precision work meets a machine that never forgives distraction. It's mid-shift in a fabrication bay. A worker fine-tunes a part beneath a rotating spindle. The sound of equipment fills the air, steady, rhythmic, controlled. Each rotation depends on precision and consistent clearance within the workspace. During adjustment, an unpositioned component rests close to the operating zone. As the spindle cycles, minor contact alters the system's balance and interrupts its controlled motion. The event highlights how proximity within active machinery zones can destabilize a safe operating setup when preventive spacing is not maintained. Never, ever work near active rotating components without guards, clearance, and full isolation. Maintain distance, verify restraint, and confirm all materials are secured before power engagement. Inside a storage shed, a loader raises its bucket high, and balance starts to shift. A compact loader moves through a dusty workbay, shifting piles of sand toward a feed hopper. Bags and conveyors surround the area, where workers prepare material for processing. The operation looks ordinary, machines running, coordination flowing, until proximity meets movement. As the loader lifts a full bucket near the conveyor, its weight distribution changes across the frame. The elevated load shifts the center of gravity forward. An uneven ground texture slightly alters the loader's stability line. Within seconds, the front axle lifts, showing how lifting angle and load height can destabilize heavy equipment near work zones. Never, ever raise a loaded bucket near personnel or processing equipment. Maintain clear separation, use spotters, and always keep the bucket low while maneuvering. In a workshop filled with engines in motion, one wrong ignition changes everything. Inside the maintenance bay, a compact tractor stands mid-repair. Two mechanics work around it, one adjusting tools near the wheel, the other focused near the control area. The floor is scattered with wrenches, oil cans, and cables from the ongoing job. It's a normal day in a tight workspace where coordination and timing hold the line between control and risk. While adjusting a connection near the controls, the mechanic unintentionally turns the ignition key. The tractor activates and begins rolling forward under engaged drive. Tools clatter as it moves a short distance before stopping. The brief surge turns a routine check into a close call, a reminder that even a small spark of power can move tons of machinery. Never, ever perform maintenance with the ignition key in place or power systems active. Lockout, tagout, and neutral checks must always come before any inspection or test adjustment. Inside a busy warehouse, one step off the safe zone can change everything. A forklift moves through a crowded warehouse filled with tall stacks of wrapped materials. Operators navigate tight lanes while a pedestrian walks between storage areas. The hum of engines and shifting pallets sets a routine rhythm until movement and visibility collide. As the forklift turns into the lane, the pedestrian steps forward at the same moment. The operator's raised load blocks his view. Sightlines vanish. For a brief instant, both move into the same space before the forklift halts. The event reveals how blind zones and shared walking areas heighten collision risk in confined workspaces. Never, ever enter a forklift's path, even for a second. If visibility is limited, stop movement until eye contact and clearance are confirmed. In a narrow warehouse aisle, one misplaced step turns a routine walk into a hazard. Inside a storage area lined with rows of packed boxes, movement is constant. Inventory coming in, packing, going out. The floor space is tight, with open sections near the loading zone where workers move between shipments. A single open pit, left uncovered after unloading, blends into the dim flooring, nearly invisible in the busy flow. As workers move through the aisle, one approaches the uncovered section without noticing the change in floor level. The open gap, hidden between shadows and cargo rows, exposes a sudden height difference in the walking path. In seconds, the lapse shows why every surface in motion areas must be verified clear and covered. Never, ever leave open loading pits or floor gaps unguarded in active work zones. Every uncovered edge, even for a moment, becomes a silent fall hazard. A cement mixer eases toward the work zone, and the ground begins to question its strength. It's a busy work zone where the ground near an excavation serves as temporary access for material vehicles. The surface appears compacted, but subsurface fill remains unsettled. As the truck reverses into position, all balance depends on the unseen strength below. As the vehicle positions near the edge, ground resistance begins to vary. The load's center gradually shifts toward the unreinforced area, redistributing pressure through the subsurface fill. Subtle deformation beneath the tires reveals how unverified ground can amplify imbalance even under slow movement. Never, ever park or maneuver heavy vehicles near unverified or recently filled ground. Always confirm compaction data and load limits before entry. In a tight workspace, one lift edges past stability. Inside a metal fabrication bay, forklifts move between heavy steel drums and pipe sections. The area is compact, and every maneuver requires precision. One operator positions a loaded forklift near the assembly zone while others continue routine tasks around the line. As the load lifts, its mass moves past the forklift's safe balance range. Pressure builds across the front axle. shifting weight distribution toward the load side. The stability margin narrows as forces redistribute through the frame, demonstrating how load height and geometry can quickly alter control conditions. Never ever attempt to stabilize a forklift or its load by hand. Once weight shifts beyond design limits, control depends only on the machine and space around it. Every lift carries more than weight. It carries responsibility. Maintain clear zones, monitor balance, and trust mechanical limits over instinct. In a food plant of stainless steel and motion, one running blade turns routine into risk. Inside the chilled line, workers in white uniforms move quickly between conveyors and slicers. Every machine hums in sync, keeping production smooth. Yet, near the band saw, its steady rhythm hides a powerful edge that never rests. Without a full stop or lockout, the band saw keeps cycling even as the line pauses. Its steady motion continues unnoticed, revealing how residual energy in unisolated machinery can turn a normal stop into an unexpected hazard zone. Never, ever allow a cutting machine to remain energized when tasks stop. Always apply full isolation and lockout before any pause in work. Machines hold stored energy far longer than attention does. A fuel tank in the workshop, one spark near vapor, and pressure builds fast. Inside an auto repair bay, tools and panels cover the floor. A used fuel tank rests nearby, darkened from prior use and unpurged of internal vapor. With no ventilation or inerting, the tank still holds unseen pressure risk. To onlookers, it appears like ordinary repair work, but the internal atmosphere tells another story. As the torch flame meets the surface, heat transfers through the tank walls. The residual vapor inside begins to expand rapidly, building pressure that stresses the container's seams. The reaction reveals how trapped gases, even in trace amounts, can cause a sudden shift in structural stability. Never, ever weld or heat a fuel tank that hasn't been fully cleaned, purged, or vented. Even trace vapor can expand under heat, turning confined pressure into a dangerous release. At a busy yard, a crane lifts heavy steel pipes overhead. When alignment shifts, a routine lift turns critical. The crane raises a bundled load of steel pipes, moving it slowly across the loading area. Workers and vehicles continue their tasks nearby, treating the process as routine. To the untrained eye, the lift appears stable, but variations in load weight and rig setup create hidden strain points. As the lift progresses, the rig's alignment shifts slightly under uneven tension. The bundle leans within its rigging, revealing how subtle imbalances affect load geometry. The moment highlights the importance of constant observation and correction during any lift. Balanced rigging, proper spacing, and exclusion zones are non-negotiable in lifting operations. Even slight alignment changes can generate internal stress and lead to structural instability. In a steel plant where fire never rests, one unexpected failure turns control into chaos. The hall is dominated by a massive furnace, glowing with molten steel at extreme temperatures. Thick cables run along the walls, pipes feed energy into the chamber, and cranes move above, shifting heavy loads. The environment relies on containment systems to maintain safe and stable operations. Inside the furnace, temperature and pressure exceed safe operating limits. Containment systems strain under the heat, forcing operators to act quickly to stabilize conditions. The event reveals how even minor weaknesses in structure or inspection can escalate into critical system stress. Never, ever operate or maintain a furnace without complete inspections, verified containment safeguards, and protective barriers in place to prevent uncontrolled releases. A quick turn in the aisle, and the racking system loses balance. The storage area is stacked high, pallets reaching multiple levels. Workers move through narrow aisles with powered equipment, retrieving and shifting loads. To the untrained eye, the layout looks orderly, but every rack carries thousands of pounds of material above ground level. The truck's forks brush against the lower rack, disturbing its alignment. The stored materials begin to lean and shift, spreading strain across the shelving system. Within moments, the imbalance exposes how one small contact can ripple through the entire structure. Never, ever allow equipment to travel close to racking without clear space and proper controls. Even a slight disturbance at ground level can destabilize stacked materials above. At a textile workshop, a running fabric roll keeps turning, and control slips out of sync. It's early morning inside a production floor. Multiple green machines hum in rhythm, their rollers aligned for steady material flow. A long strip of fabric threads through a rotating shaft as adjustments are made manually. The room feels calm, the operation routine, until interaction meets motion. As the roll advances through the spindle, rotation maintains full operating speed. The moving surface builds localized motion around the shaft, widening the active control zone. The exposed rotation demonstrates how stored mechanical energy can turn routine adjustments into a precision-critical task, underscoring why guarding and isolation are essential before any manual alignment. Never ever handle or align moving fabric near active rollers. Always isolate, lock out, and stop rotation before making manual corrections or adjustments. At a busy workstation, a worker leans close to the machine. When moving parts engage, the routine shifts in an instant. Inside the factory, tables are crowded with tools, parts, and half-finished assemblies. Workers sit shoulder to shoulder, hands moving quickly as the hum of machinery fills the room. The setup feels familiar, almost repetitive, with every worker focused on keeping pace. One worker bends downwards, concentrating on her task, while the machine continues with steady rotation. Then, the hazard becomes clear. Exposed rotating parts spin steadily, creating a zone where anything too close risks contact. The motion continues without pause, showing how constant rotation demands clear boundaries and strict guarding. Never, ever work near rotating machinery without proper guarding and secure attire. Machines won't stop on their own. Controls, barriers, and prevention must always come first. At a busy construction site, one wrong control and the entire lift changes course. The day begins with routine coordination across the site. A tower crane operates above stacked materials while teams align deliveries on the ground. The environment feels steady, mechanical rhythm, clear commands, and predictable motion. Every task depends on precision, where timing and communication define safety. As the operator engages the wrong lever, the lift drifts off its intended path. The assembly swings slightly, shifting momentum across the work zone. One misstep in control, and the line between precision and risk becomes clear. Never, ever operate lifting equipment without verifying lever position and load direction. Every motion must start with full awareness of control, layout, and active paths. Inside a stone chute, what looks like a routine jam hides stored pressure waiting to shift. In the crushing area, rocks line a steel chute, feeding material toward the conveyor. Dust hangs over the structure as large stones sit unevenly across the channel. To the untrained eye, the setup appears stable, but confined weight within the chute is never truly at rest. Inside the jam, pressure quietly redistributes through the compacted rock. Small internal shifts hint at unseen stress building within the chute. The setup appears calm, but even slight movement under load can trigger sudden release when forces realign. Never, ever inspect or clear blockages in a loaded chute without lockout or remote release. Stored weight and hidden pressure make jammed material one of the most deceptive hazards on site. On a high-rise construction floor, a beam rests across an open edge. When weight is applied unevenly, balance becomes uncertain. At the site, workers use a loose beam as footing while handling materials near the edge. Pallets of blocks surround the work zone, and the area lacks guardrails or secured flooring. To the casual eye, the beam appears stable, but it's not designed for use as a platform. As load is applied unevenly, the beam shifts under pressure, rocking slightly before workers notice the imbalance. The moment highlights how even small adjustments can expose the weakness of makeshift supports, prompting a quick move to secure the area. Never, ever use loose beams or temporary supports as working platforms. Only fixed and secured surfaces with proper guardrails prevent imbalance from turning into a fall hazard. As a tower crane climbs higher, the balance between steel, load, and precision begins to test its limits. At a high-rise site, the tower crane undergoes a height extension process. Each new section is guided upward through a jacking frame built for controlled alignment. The climb depends on synchronized hydraulics, locking pins, and balance checks. Each movement must remain perfectly in sequence. During elevation, the climbing frame experiences a brief timing offset between its lifting components. The system compensates instantly, demonstrating how even small synchronization gaps require precise control to maintain balance during height adjustments. Never ever begin a crane height climb without verifying alignment, locking engagement, and hydraulic synchronization. Structural balance depends on timing and precision, not assumption. On a busy press line, one brief delay meets unstoppable motion. Inside a metal stamping workshop, conveyor tables move in precise rhythm under the hum of presses. Operators align parts in sync with automation, every second dictated by timing. The air carries the pulse of machinery, efficient, powerful, and unforgiving to hesitation. As the press line cycles, every motion follows a precise sequence. But when automation advances before the zone is fully cleared, timing collides with logic. The press continues its programmed rhythm, a reminder that machines follow code, not caution, and why safeguards must always define the tempo of production. Never, ever reach into or across an active press line. Machines respond only to signals, not awareness. Without guards, interlocks, or verified cycle isolation, even a moment of inattention can place movement ahead of safety. A routine move across the dock until the surface shifts and balance disappears. Inside a busy loading bay, trucks are backed in and freight waits for transfer. A worker in high-vis guides his powered pallet jack onto the raised dock plate, bridging floor to trailer. Around him, the rhythm of loading never stops. Steel, pallets, and machines all moving in sync. The dock plate shifts beneath the load, upsetting balance in a split second. The pallet jack rolls slightly toward the gap before stabilizing as the motion evens out. The moment exposes how an unsecured dock plate can quickly turn a routine transfer into a loss of control. Dock plates must be locked, level, and tested before every use. Even a slight tilt can turn control into a dangerous fall zone. In a quiet packing area, one wrong step brings a powerful fan too close for safety. Inside a storage and processing zone, industrial fans run to keep the air moving over stacks of produce crates. The floor is narrow, with power cables and crates lined up close to rotating ventilation units. Noise and repetition mask the presence of high-speed blades behind partially open guards, creating a false sense of safety around operating equipment. As nearby adjustments are made, communication timing moves out of sync. Airflow pressure increases near the fan's intake, shifting nearby materials unexpectedly. The moment reveals how small coordination slips can raise risk when powered equipment stays unguarded. Never ever approach or lean near operating fans or ventilation systems without full guards or shutdown controls in place. Rotating blades and suction zones can create invisible hazards long before contact occurs. In the dim light of a construction site, one missed signal sets heavy machinery in motion. It's night at a busy earthwork zone. A dump truck reverses toward a loader, headlights cutting through dust and exhaust. Operators rely on routine coordination, each load, each signal, and each step synchronized under low visibility and fatigue. As the loader prepares to release its load, the exchange of movement between both machines adjusts slightly out of rhythm. The truck edges closer than the designated boundary, narrowing the safe gap. Without clear visual confirmation or a spotter to guide, two operating ranges begin to overlap, turning a routine cycle into a near miss under fading visibility. Never ever enter or remain in the blind zone of active heavy equipment. Machines don't yield to hesitation, only clear communication and separation prevent escalation. Night work narrows reaction time. Always establish spotters, signal systems, and exclusion zones before machinery engages. Every load, every lift, every second, visibility is safety. In a narrow yard, one unseen move turns order into uncertainty. A flatbed truck stands in a narrow yard, its engine idling beside a forklift ready for loading. Workers move in rhythm as a two-wheeler approaches the same path. In that shared zone, visibility narrows fast, where one small gap hides a much larger risk. As the forklift pauses mid-operation, its forks remain raised and unnoticed. A scooter enters the lane, slipping briefly into the forklift's blind zone. The confined space, reflective surfaces, and quiet machinery merge into a moment that exposes how easily sightlines can vanish in shared work areas. Never, ever allow mixed traffic, pedestrian or vehicle, to pass through active loading areas without separation or visual control. Clear barriers, lowered forks, and defined pathways prevent silent hazards from forming. At a roadside repair bay, pressure builds quietly. Routine meets unseen force. In a small transport yard, two workers prepare a truck tire for inflation. Around them, hoses hum as compressed air flows through the line. The tire rests on bare ground without a cage or restraint. Just another quick job in a familiar setting. The environment feels calm, but every inflation carries potential energy that demands boundaries. As air continues to flow through the line, pressure quietly builds within the tire assembly. Without a restraint cage, the system relies entirely on precision, showing how stable pressure must always stay matched with proper safety barriers. Never, ever inflate a tire outside a secured cage or restraint. Compressed air must be treated as stored energy. It deserves distance, structure, and respect at every stage. In a small woodworking shop, a single misaligned plank turns a routine cut into a near miss. Inside a compact carpentry workshop, the table saw hums steadily as dust hangs in the air. Planks are stacked by the wall, sawdust coats the floor, and the operator positions another board for planing. The setting feels routine until small details test the limits of control and precision. As the board enters the feed path, a minor alignment error alters the flow between the material and the cutter's motion. The change builds pressure along the feed direction, creating a subtle imbalance within the system and kickback. Never, ever feed material into a cutter head without ensuring proper alignment, guarding, and tool rest distance. One uneven setup can convert stable energy into unpredictable movement. On a flatbed stacked with castings, balance shifts and control is lost. Inside the workshop, a truck is backed in for unloading, stacked with large cast iron parts. Workers move nearby as the side panel is open to access the load. To anyone watching, it looks routine, but without restraints. Each casting sits under its own unstable weight. As the side panel opens, one of the castings shifts slightly under its own weight. The movement redistributes the load, throwing off balance and forcing nearby parts to settle unevenly. The moment exposes how unrestrained cargo reacts. Never, ever open truck panels or unload heavy parts without proper restraints or mechanical support. Large castings must remain secured at all times because once balance is disturbed, control is lost. Unsecured loads can shift even with minor movement. Always confirm restraints before release. Never rely on weight alone to keep heavy parts stable. A simple check before unloading prevents the chain reaction that balance can't undo. Don't forget to share what you learned today in the comments. Your insight could save a life. Take care.